WWF In Your House 15, A Cold Day in Heck. Or for the PG-13 audience, A Cold Day in Hell, which I hope everybody is. Hope there's no kids listening to this. That would be horrifying. But we got a fun show on our hands here. We got Stone Cold versus The Undertaker, one of their first matches against each other. We got an MMA match on this show. We got a 3-on-1 gauntlet matches. We got clean finishes in 1997 wrestling. My goodness. There's a lot to get into. Very historic, just based on that. But speaking of historic, you know what else is historic? Your beautiful smile. It's the Apron Bump Podcast.
It's the hardest. Talk around and disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what hard is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can knock this. Let's get started.
What's up, everybody? Howdy. Welcome to the Apron Bump Podcast. I am your host, the hardest part of the ring, Kyle. How's everybody doing today? Hope everybody's, I don't know why I said it like that, but hope everybody's having a lovely March. Hope everybody's marching through their days. I don't know. Cold day in hell. Put on your jackets, everybody. It's a cold day in hell. Now, is a cold day in hell, is it like cold, or is it just like cold for hell, like in relation to what hell usually is? Because hell is like probably pretty hot, right? It's probably at least like 95, 96 degrees there. So maybe like a cold day in hell is just like a comfy 82 degrees Fahrenheit. You know what I'm saying? A lot of questions arise from watching this show. that is just the tippity top of the iceberg. But speaking of ice, you know what ice is? Stone Cold. Speaking of Stone Cold, he's on this show, challenging for the WWF title in his first one-on-one foray for the title, at least on pay-per-view. It's a pretty historic show in that sense. Like I mentioned earlier, we got an MMA rules match, or what it was known as in 1997, a no-holds-barred match. So it's, you know, the rules are kind of vague. We get into it, but we got a debuting Ken Shamrock in this match, taking on Vader, who is fresh off of his, let's just say, his tour of Kuwait. So that's something. We got more Nation versus Ahmed Johnson. We got The Rock versus Mankind in one of their first matches. We got Flash Funk. We got pre-King of the Ring Hunter Hearst Helmsley. He's gearing up. What else? Just so much. And we're going to get into all of it. So don't you worry about that. And who am I going to get into it with? Well, I took out my straw and I stuck it inside my guest, Juice Springsteen from the Juice Box Podcast. I am sucking out all of the juice out of his box. So he's on the show. Always a good time with Juice, man. He's a great follow on social media. Talks a lot WCW on the all X and all the other various socials you can find him in. I'll put that all in the description below. Also check out his podcast, The Juice Box. Covers all of the major scuttlebutt and wrestling. He does a lot of stuff with Andrew Baydala. You may or may not see Around the Horn on X every now and again. So he does a lot of good stuff over there. He's an entertaining guy, smart guy, handsome guy. And but he likes Seinfeld instead of Friends. So he's not perfect. But he's good enough for this show. No, we have a good old time. Go follow him, subscribe. Like I said, all that stuff in the description below. Do the same for me at Apron Bump on all the social medias. Hey, if you like this type of episode, maybe you're coming in cold. Well, it's a cold day in hell, so everybody's cold in here. You know what I'm saying? But hey, if you like this type of episode, you like this era of wrestling, well, I cover it all, baby. From WWF, WCW, and ECW. I cover everything within this timeline chronologically. So if you want to check out all of those episodes, like I said, in a uniform, what's the word? What's another word for chronological? A linear timeline of all three of these promotions, seeing people jump back and forth, seeing different promotions evolve as a result of what other promotions are doing. It's a very fascinating time in wrestling. So now is as good a time as ever to make sure you're caught up on the Apron Bump Wrestling Wars of the 90s timeline. I'll put a link to that in the description below. It'll take you to my website where you can filter down to whatever episode, whatever promotion era you'd like to hear me chronologically gallivant along, whether it's TNA, Ring of Honor, Attitude Era, Ruthless. I cover a bunch of stuff on the Apron Bump, so go check it all out. Listen to every single second of me talking into this microphone. But speaking of the Wrestling Wars of the 90s and those three promotions, make sure you stick around to the end of the podcast where the hardest promotion battle of 1997 continues, where we compare these three companies at this point in time. So where are we at? Like April, May? I don't fucking know. Mid 97 at some point. But as of the date of this show, we compare each of the companies. We see who's doing the best, who's doing the worst from matches and characters, storylines, what have you. We'll grade this show and compare it to other shows. There's a whole scoring system. We'll get into it, but whichever promotion has the highest score by the end of the year, or at the end of the year, will earn themselves a purchase from myself. I will purchase a championship belt from that respective promotion. As you can see behind me, I got the old IC title, as WWF was the hardest promotion in 1996. Who's going to be hard in 1997? Well, I know I am, and I hope you are too. So with that, I'll stop babbling. Let's get into it, shall we? WWF In Your House 15. Cold Day in Hell. With myself and Juice Springsteen from the Juicebox Wrestling Podcast. So it'll be a cold day in hell before that happens, though, right?
Quite a departure from our It's Uncensored, Tony.
Yeah, this is very censored. Well, actually, somewhat censored, I guess.
Somewhat. And hey, finally, so we're completing the North American trifecta with this show, because we've done ECW, we've done WCW, and now we're doing WWE. So
yeah, a little out of your wheelhouse. Well, maybe not out of your wheelhouse, because you were way more WCW. Well, I guess not as a kid, right? I forget, because you got into WCW late in the game, right?
Well, I wouldn't know about late in the game. I was at Nitro when I was 3 in 96.
Well, you weren't watching as a 3-year-old.
Well, I mean, I was there. Was I not watching the show? We taped Raw and watched Nitro.
Okay, I see.
So going back to these shows were definitely not new, but I mean, I've seen some of the shows or some of the matches on these shows throughout, like, DVDs and stuff throughout the years. But to actually sit and watch one of these definitely was a departure from what I'm used to. It really was nice, though, seeing that 1 hour 43 minute time. I was like, man, I gotta find time to watch this thing. And then I was like, you know what? I can knock this thing out quick.
Right. It is not. I mean, this show flew by for me. I mean, we can.
Same.
We're obviously getting to the individual matches and stuff, but overall, this was a comfy watch, I would say. I mean, it was definitely. I don't know if you've seen Revenge of the Taker, the previous In Your House.
Probably not in full.
Night and day. I mean, I just watched it not too long ago, and it was about the same time, but it was a slog to get through. It was just nonstop DQ finishes, count out finishes, dumb segments, boring matches. But this was, I mean, all relatively clean finishes. Just the pacing of it, the commentary was good. No Vince McMahon. The atmosphere.
We did get Jerry Lawler, who, man, you wonder why. You know, people look back and go, I don't know how he even had a job when he was saying some of the stuff he was saying. So we'll be sure to tackle some of those quips later on.
We all loved it at the time. Hell yeah, puppies. Well, he wasn't even at puppies yet. I think he was just.
No, we were. Todd Pettengill was still in the show. We're still not yet in that Attitude Era because the screw job still hasn't happened. So we're getting there, though.
Still very much a transition period, that's for sure. But I wanted to ask you, obviously, WCW is your thing. What is it, and maybe if anything on this show reflects it, what swayed you more towards WCW over WWF?
It's funny you say that because, and it's maybe not the direct way I was going to discuss this, but to me, even just starting this show, I don't know, and maybe it's a negative to WCW this way, but I would say people have said this more often now with WWE because of how big it is, and it just seems so much more polished and not really off the cuff as much. Like nothing can possibly go wrong. We have a fix for everything. Meanwhile, we're watching WCW and like Dusty Rhodes is crying on commentary because of something so funny in the ring when it's like people getting hit with things.
You got the commode lid.
Take it more serious. I don't know. It just never felt like as polished. That's the best way I could kind of describe it. And I just grew up with WCW. Maybe that's just what it was. Like I've told people this. I grew up with Hulk Hogan as a bad guy. Like I grew up with Hollywood Hogan and had to retroactively realize, oh, by the way, he also was the biggest star in the history of the company for WWE as a good guy. Like, I did it all reverse. So, coming into this show, I'm like, good main event. I'm sure it's going to be. I'm pretty sure I saw it before, but I didn't recall that finish. The finish was wonderful. And we'll talk about that. But, some of these pieces here, I'm kind of equating where they used to be and where they were. I'm wearing a Vader shirt, so I was hyped to see Vader in a match. And they were throwing some potatoes. So I don't know. It seemed like a different presentation, even though this was their 2-hour quote budget show. We're almost to that Canadian Stampede SummerSlam 97 heightened. We are so close to that tipping point of boom, screw job, attitude era, Steve Austin wins, take over the business. But we're not there yet. So
I mean, all products in North America are killing it at this moment in time in 97. So it's definitely it's a fun time in wrestling, if nothing else. But yeah, I would agree. WWF, the more polished. And I noted the video package in the beginning because I've been watching all these shows, as you know, chronologically.
I love
this
these
is
intro packages.
One of the first, not the first one, but it's very early on, like opening video package because it was for the longest time. It's like, Vince McMahon voiceover. You got this guy and this guy and in the main event, you got this. It's kind of like what WCW is, and it's really like this Undertaker, Stone Cold, like blending their different themes and like all in one video package. It really made me feel hyped for the main event.
Absolutely,
a match that I had never seen, so it set the tone well. And I feel like that's a very underrated element of these shows is that presentation in the beginning. So,
and that's what I have to start it off. I said that nothing tops the intro videos from this era. I can't remember if I don't know what show it is, but I can remember one being like starting off with, life isn't fair. And it's like, it isn't fair. Like that this happened and this happened. And it seems like it was, and they really progressed throughout the years, making them more dramatic. I remember the one like where I think it might've been Austin and McMahon. It might've been leading up to St. Valentine's Day Massacre or something, but like it would be something. And then you'd hear Vince be like, something Austin, and like they would keep replaying that clip like just to drive it home. Like if you don't recognize those two are going to be in a match tonight.
Oh dude, the
voiceover guy is, I don't know, I just love this presentation. It made it more serious.
Yes, it made it feel like, I don't know, just like a fun show was ahead, and it certainly was.
Well, cold day in hell.
Yeah, I mean, where it's cold in Richmond, Virginia, I guess.
Yeah, so isn't this is this your stomping grounds?
Sure is, pal. It's about an hour and a half north of me, but yeah, within vicinity. I've driven to Richmond to see shows and driven back afterwards, so it's within striking distance.
Okay, yeah, because I first when they said that, I was like, man, I think this is pretty apropos considering who I'm talking to about this thing.
Yeah, man. I mean, Richmond doesn't get a lot of big pay-per-views, and I guess this isn't like a big pay-per-view per se, but
still,
I mean, it's cool to see.
On this show, and it's nuts to think about it because at the time it wasn't as big, although the main event was, but you got Austin versus Taker. You got The Rock versus Mankind.
There's a lot of things that are huge in hindsight.
It's crazy that some of these matches happened, in retrospect. So looking forward to it.
The debut of Ken Shamrock. I mean, you just got a lot of foreshadowing all over the show. Which also represented in the opening match. We got a Hunter Hearst Helmsley with China taking on Flash Funk.
I prefer Too Cold Scorpio.
Yeah, dude, I don't. Flash.
It's it's a great guy, great, his gimmick wasn't even his gimmick was just like dancing before, but now they like in WCW and ECW, and now it's just let's make that the gimmick is that he is
Classic
a
Vince.
dancing guy. Yeah, when he didn't really need that, and his athleticism should have been the gimmick.
Is he supposed to be like a spaceman? Like the boots, the big gray boots.
You see the amount of pyro he got?
Yeah,
I was stunned. I was like, what the hell's going on? This is not WrestleMania. This is the opening match at an in-your-house show.
I mean,
But,
a random match too. I mean, it's not like this is a feud that built up. It's just let's get a couple guys, set the tone here. I mean, it was a good match. Like, I mean, it's not gonna blow anybody's tits off, but it was a perfect opening match. Not too long. They didn't do too much, but they kept the pace up. Some entertaining spot. I mean, Flash Funk, Too Cold Scorpio. He's so fun to, especially in this era. He sticks out like a sore thumb in terms of the athleticism that he shows out. And Triple H, a fun little era of Triple H where he's still like really hungry and he's still.
Yeah. Well, he's a month away from winning King of the Ring.
I was gonna ask, do you think? Because like I said, this is a pretty random match here. Do we think maybe this is all kind of a precursor? Let's set the tone. Let's build this guy up for a King of the Ring run.
I mean, if Flash Funk's equity at this stage of 97 was enough to where a victory over him would launch you into the conversation, but you have to remember, and this is just hindsight knowing, he was Triple H was supposed to win in 96.
Yes.
So he got punished. So for all we know, it was all right next year. As long as you're healthy, as long as things line up, you'll get it next year. So
yeah,
well, I mean, who knows if that's what they really wanted to do? But you said blow the tits off. Well, there were no Funkettes, so that
there weren't any fun. That's why he lost. No Funkettes.
Yeah, Lawler said that they aren't as dumb as they look because they didn't want to interfere with China. So that was the first of many degrading quips from Jerry Lawler on this show. But I don't know what you're gonna get. We so I put WWF shows seem more polished, but there's less ad-libbing on the commentary. Like again, seems like everything's kind of fed, and only if there's a joke that the other person's not expecting. Because JR and Lawler are great. Then that's when they kind of play with that commentary. So I enjoyed that for sure. And the only other comment JR said to Lawler, "Can you speak French? I can barely speak English."
You're not wrong, Jim. You're not wrong. You're very early because Vince is he's slowly fading out of commentary. So this is a rare show where he's not on commentary. Yeah. And one of the first shows where it's just JR and King. So that was a nice. They're still building the chemistry, but you can tell it's there even early days.
Yeah. And new WWE Hall of Famer Triple H is in this match, so he's getting inducted for this particular run. Not as DX run, because DX hasn't happened yet. So
it's not Hunter Hearst Helmsley going in the Hall of Fame.
True, and it's not Jean-Paul Levesque, so he could be in 4 or 5 times.
Jean-Paul, you think Jean-Paul? You think JPL is going to get a Hall of Fame slot at some point? I mean, he could make it happen if he wants.
He could. If anything, I'd like to see them tackle that in an action figure, though, because they do crazier characters. Why not?
Oh yeah.
Why not tap into that? I'd buy it.
Terra Rising, perhaps.
That might be too niche, but Jean-Paul Levesque had a match at Starrcade, so
he sure did. That was against Alex Wright, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's Wonderkind.
Man, what a time! What a time.
No, another character like Too Cold Scorpio. All these guys were in WCW at one point, like Vader too, like a lot of these guys, and they just go to WWF and more than likely see a lot of success. Yeah.
Well, Flash Funk is debatable, but
outlier, yeah.
Still early in his run, but yeah, Triple H looks really good in this match. I mean, he just is, normal, nothing crazy from Trips here, but everything felt so like there's so much intent behind it. I almost compared, not to bring WCW back into it, but he reminds me. I see some similarities between Triple H here and DDP in '96, where it's like you can tell there's something there. Like there's a hunger. They're like the way they bump, the way they move.
Right.
Like they're just there's so much energy to what they do. Obviously, different characters.
Almost comes off like a little bit more advanced for where they are on the card.
Yeah.
Like Although DDP was old as hell by the time he got to a good spot, but like Triple H. So I have here he's doing the Harley race knee. He did like a flare flop. Like he's doing things that you might not give to a guy that's opening the show, but he's, I think, well ahead of where he's placed on the card. And again, you see that the next month he wins King of the Ring and everything's changed. So I kind of agree with you in that realm. They kept bringing up the dojo for Flash Funk, I think, like the New Japan dojo, I believe.
Oh yeah, was he in the dojo? Yeah, I guess he was.
Lawler said it's for the rookies or wannabes. Like, let's just keep degrading everything. Women, companies, whatever it takes.
He's still like freshly off of his like wrestling run, and so he's like, I think he's like stuck in like, I have to be a heel to like put down my opponent rather than be a commentator and build him up. It's like he doesn't know where to put his energy.
I'm not sure if this is, man, we're like right in the middle of, I don't think he goes to ECW yet, does he? That's WrestlePalooza. No. I don't know. I think that's a little later in 97 because that's when it's like turned up to 11.
It's like a few weeks after this. So we're like out there. Okay. Yeah. Because they've done the ECW invasion and stuff already. So there's already like, working together. So it's bound to happen at some point soon.
So they had they show the 5 seats for the Hart Foundation getting ready to come out. And there was like, they show the one shot and there's a guy and his kid that are like walking right near there. And Lawler's like, get that guy out of there. He's not allowed to sit there. And then he said that McMahon was very cheap, which I felt was a very unique. Have they acknowledged that Vince was the owner yet?
In passing, they have. Yeah.
Okay. Because like you said, he's still kind of on commentary. He wasn't on this show, but again, it's a quote unquote lesser show. But I felt like, man, let's take a jab at. Although he might have been in the ear of Lawler saying, "Hey, rip on me." I don't know.
Could have been, yeah. I mean, he's definitely not the character yet, but they've definitely like had promos where people like acknowledge it. I don't know if it was Paul Heyman that broke that open when they had like their debate or whatever, or it was him and King, but I think he made references and stuff. I don't know.
I feel like Shawn Michaels might have said something like that.
Yeah.
Like the Boss Man or something, like alluding to it.
Something along those lines, yeah. But yeah, they show the Hart seats, which I don't know, they work there. Can't they just like come out into just watch it from the ringside, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, that was discussed the other day with like wrestlers being at the
modern day.
Was it the Rumble or something? And I think friend of my show, Justin LeBar, who's on Busted Open, he was like, I don't like it unless they show that they bought a seat. And I referenced Hall and Nash like proudly showing their tickets going to WCW. At least make it known that like they weren't supposed to be there and they wanted to go there. Not only are they here and we're not using them, we're going to have them sit in the crowd and act like they're really happy to not be used on the main show.
Right.
So
just happen to be sitting all in the same spot in the corner. Yep. But yeah, there's a good match here. Flash and Trips. Like I said, Flash, he's doing a bunch of wacky, like spinning leg drops and dives to the outside. And his comeback's fun. He has like he boots Triple H out of the air, goes for the moonsault off the top rope, but Triple H crotches him. And the way the crowd responded, you could tell they like wanted to see it, which is a testament to, I guess, the pace they set in this match. But then Triple H follows that up with the pedigree, gets the 1, 2, 3, and beats old Scorpio. But that being said, I feel like the biggest star coming out of this was probably China. No.
You wouldn't know it by hearing Lawler. So I have a few more quips. We got boxers or briefs asking JR like what she wears. Does she have a boyfriend? She needs a man friend.
I mean,
Jay Leno eats your heart out in regards to her chin. Which Jay Leno ends up main eventing Road Wild 98. So a little WW foreshadowing. You mentioned that spinning leg drop from the corner out of like the Vader Bomb springboard.
Yeah.
That was badass. And I also have a belly to belly or belly to back flipping suplex that was hit from the top rope. Again, opening match of like a non-main 4, and I felt both these guys went above and beyond. And then the Alabama slam to the low blow on the top rope was pretty cool. I felt that was cool. So
innovative stuff
to start. Yeah,
fun stuff. No complaints here. No notes from us, but
I mean, I just ran through a lot of my notes, to be fair.
Several notes, maybe, perhaps, but
I always have a bunch of random notes on these, but
you know why? It's because you're in your zone, Juice. You know who else is in
Yeah.
his zone? Mr. Kenneth Shamrock, who's here.
Hey, we got you to WWE. You've done Ultimate Fighting. You've been fighting people for real. You can come in here and it'll be all the work, and you can do, referee. But by the way, your first match for real is going to be against Vader, who's punched people and he's fought people while his eye was hanging out of his socket. So good luck, Ken.
Who's all full of piss and vinegar from being captured and weight right before
all that. Yeah,
I mean, he is just
which I hope they talk about. I hope they talk about at their the Dark Side of the Ring on Vader. I'm sure they're going to bring up the Kuwait thing.
Yeah, they got to. Yeah, I mean, I know surface level stuff about it, but I'm sure there's so much to it.
It's wild. An Undertaker sitting there who's like at the peak of just being kayfabe, like he's just being Undertaker, and he's just watching Vader just eviscerate this little guy who questioned about wrestling.
Wild time, man. Wild time. But we're gonna see Vader in a no holds barred match against Ken Shamrock later in the show. But we got I can't do that. Oh, I can.
You can. You're doing it right there.
Like the finger is
You're having a tough time with that. That's brutal.
It's gets in the way of a lot of things. It's time. But Ken Shamrock's here.
Yeah.
And they show some footage of him in UFC, and then JR interviews him. And so I guess Ken was attacked by Vader and Mankind earlier tonight in his locker room. And JR asks, hey, is that going to have any adverse effect on your match? Well, like, probably, Jim. I mean, he's, that would do it, I would think. But Ken's in his zone. So apparently this has no effect on the Rock of Sham. So,
which again, as a WCW guy, Vader and Mankind working together after they tried to kill each other 4 years prior. Love that.
Well, that was Cactus Jack. That's a completely different person.
Well, yeah, I know.
You're being silly.
I know. I don't know what I'm talking about. Kayfabe only, brother.
Speaking of Hoozle, we got Mankind in this next match taking on Rocky Maivia. Man, just seeing this
is crazy
and what it would become. I think this is their first match against each other. I could be wrong.
Probably, yeah.
Very early on, if anything else, but another just good match. I mean, I didn't know what to expect. We're still early Rock and Mankind. Mankind's good, but it's like, is a Rocky Maivia match going to grab me by the cockles? And I think it did a little bit. It was a pretty quick match, but I think they made the most of
it. It grabbed me by the cockles when he hit the rock bottom on the ramp.
Dude, like, good so Lord, random.
Dude.
It was so. I wasn't expecting that kind of brutality in this match, but damn, that was.
Well, but then you realize, oh wait, Mankind's in it. He's gonna do whatever it takes to make this a little notch above a normal match, and he just takes it like flat back on the metal ass ramp.
Right.
It's like, and little do they know that in about a year and a half, they're gonna have probably one of the most brutal matches in the history of the company.
Just really set the tone here, man. Yeah, I think Mick said on his podcast one time, I forget what exactly he said, but he's like, nobody did, because he was like, he always had great showings at In Your Houses. So he was like, nobody did the best when it mattered the least, kind of thing, which is pretty accurate. I mean, because he's fresh off of that awesome match with Taker at the previous In Your House.
And then the In Your House match with Shawn.
Yes.
Of course.
I mean,
and then you remember, even his best matches were at Royal Rumbles. They never really happened at WrestleMania.
Right.
Even him getting through the Hell in a Cell, the second time was at No Way Out, and then the big one was at King of the Ring. Like nothing ever happened at WrestleMania. That's kind of interesting.
No. But yeah, so just for context, Rock, he just lost his Intercontinental title to Owen Hart a few weeks before this, and I guess the story here is that did Rock peak too soon because he debuted. Well, like 6 months before this, won the IC title pretty quick. They're running like this sophomore jinx thing on Raw where it's like in the magazines, like, is this the sophomore jinx? Which I feel like you got to be in your second year, not the second calendar year, but that's the whole thing.
I put that in the same category as it seemed like Marcus Alexander Bagwell was Rookie of the Year in WCW for like 3 years in a row, like 91, 92, 93. This young upstart, I'm like, he's been there for 3 years.
It's all a mindset there, Jucifer. But yes, and Mankind just lost the WWF title match to Taker, like I mentioned. Paul Bearer, got a fireball to the face, so he's just a rabid animal without him, or a wandering animal, whatever. But then the match gets underway. Again, another pretty random match. Not a lot of story between these two guys per se, but fun match. Rock bottom on the ramp was brutal, like we mentioned. We get JR's classic. Oh, well, people say they learn how to fall, which he made a habit of saying this. I've never heard anybody say, "Oh, they know how to fall." At least
True,
not in the
but were you
context
ever
of like on like metal ramps and stuff.
but were you ever watching wrestling with people that were like kind of, oh, they know how to fall? What do we? Come on, you
Maybe,
know?
maybe in the
Because I
time, yeah.
because I think because that's I had the same note. Wrestlers know how to fall was like a quote that did he not use that at either Hell in a Cell, or I want to say like one of the no, TLC 2. He says it when Jeff Hardy gets speared by Edge in the middle of the ring from the
Oh
hanging
yeah,
off the belt. So like, you don't learn how to fall. Like, like how ridiculous
I think
that
he said it in Hell in a
is.
Cell also with when he
What
the big one.
that would make sense.
I mean,
But
if
yeah,
he's in,
I took that same thing away. Like, unless you're watching it with people that are kind of like not buying it,
yeah,
of course we know they don't know how to fall, but man, he seemed to fall a lot. So maybe he did actually know how to do it.
I think he
You
was just
just
okay
got to
with
take it.
falling.
Yeah, you just you know what? If I get hurt, it is what it is.
The fact that this man is still just walking around, he might be walking with a hunch, but the fact that he's walking at all
Yeah.
at this point is crazy.
And he
Insane.
lost a lot of weight, I think, recently too.
Yeah. I mean,
So I'll tell you what, looks like he's not the same age, but he looks like he's in a little bit better shape than Hogan, who's like barely even.
yeah.
But Hogan's like in his 70s. But when you think about what Foley went through in like 10 years,
Mhm.
probably a lot more damaging than what Hogan did his entire life, outside of hitting the leg drop, which probably ruined his tailbone forever.
Yeah. I was thinking, like, what would be worse? Doing a leg drop,
Ooh.
but doing it every single night at least once, or
For
taking a
for
couple
what,
huge
25
bumps.
years?
Yeah.
A couple
And there's
of
like
huge bumps.
a
We
few.
could probably name so many just
A handful.
off the top of our head that are like, if you take one of those. I always say that when I watch like football with some people. I'm like,
Yeah.
you see one big hit, I'm like, that would be I'd retire immediately after getting hit one time like that.
A car
Let
crash every
alone
play. It's insane.
let alone me thrown off of the top of the Hell in a Cell and then coming back in the same match to then get rethrown.
But they know how to fall. So like,
That's right. And the ring's a trampoline. Come on.
yeah, exactly. Have you ever been in a ring before?
One time but I didn't get to take a bump or anything, but it was to take a photo with Kurt Angle, which is pretty cool.
Oh yeah, you should take a bump one day. It is.
I would love to. Sign me up.
I expected like a firm mattress, almost maybe like a little more firm than that, but it is just
To be fair, I was just at a indie show this past weekend, and where the ring was in this venue really was just standing room only, so people were up near the ring anyway. And I also watched them take the ring down, so it was kind of interesting because I felt it before, and then I saw what it was after, and it felt firm-ish, but all it was the boards, but then it was maybe this much of padding above it. Even so, I'm not sure I'm signing up to just get flung off of it over and over and over and over again.
You get callous to it after a while. I mean, I trained for a few months, so I mean, I'm not, the expert by any means, but it's the first bump I took. It was like, oh, this is just like a carpeted floor that I'm like just falling on my back on. It was just, and to see Mankind out here just taking headers into steel barricades and rock bottoms on steel ramps. It's just, God bless this guy. God bless us. He's deranged though, as commentary often says.
Yeah, he is deranged.
But Rocky hits a shoulder breaker, which was his finisher, but he hits it. Doesn't go for the pin though. He wants to add a little razzle dazzle to this. Goes to the top rope, cross body. Mankind rolls through it right into the mandible claw, which is pretty slick. I liked how they got into that.
This would have been the best finish of the night had the main event not occurred.
Yes. And wrestling in '97, you don't get a lot of just good finishes. Like
no, it's
seamless
always
finishes. Yeah,
DQ, run in, ref bump. Apron bump.
I like that. I like what you're doing there. But yeah, Mandible Claw gets the submission. Mankind gets the win over Rocky. And Rocky's sophomore jinx continues. I wonder how he's going to pull his way out of this. I mean, there's no possible way that he can recover from this. So.
You know, he should probably just focus on maybe doing some other things like, you know, maybe doing movies down the line. Good looking guy. I'm sure he's got some movie stuff, maybe some B-level movies, though. No blockbusters.
Right.
You know?
Right. Yeah. Maybe like what's a movie from 97?
Titanic.
Tommy Boy, maybe.
That was 95.
Tommy Boy 2. Make him the new Chris Farley. Sign him
Slim
up.
guy in a big coat.
But yeah, so Rock loses, Mankind wins. Good stuff. Yep. Any other nuggets for that one?
Not really. And then even for this next match, I didn't have too much, to be honest with you, other than, well, we'll talk about it, but you know.
Yeah, honestly,
not
it's
a lot
like
of notes for this middle part of the show, to be honest with you.
Yeah, this part of the show, it's just like, oh, it's fine. It's good stuff. Not a lot of stuff to rag on. Nothing that'll like no huge story beats or anything. Until this third match, we got a 3-on-1 gauntlet match. Ahmed Johnson versus the Nation of Domination. So this was set up at the previous In Your House. The challenge was made by Farouk. He says, if Ahmed could beat 3 of us in a gauntlet match, I'll disband the nation. So Ahmed, of course, willing to accept because he's a big dumb idiot. So Ahmed comes out.
Do you know what he would have sounded like had he wanted to accept that?
Tell me.
I can't do it.
No, you can do it good, Ahmed, Joe.
I'm going to beat them. Nation domination.
That's pretty good. You're not sweaty enough, though, is the thing.
I'm not sweaty enough. I'm not jacked. I don't have the tights right up my ass.
Well, let me,
you know,
let me speak. You brought up the tights. We got to,
man, you want to talk? I want of that's crazy. The fact that the knee pads are not on his knee and they're like on his thigh.
Well, the fact that he has 4 knee pads and none of them are on his knee.
Basically pants.
What was? I'm trying to get in the mind of Ahmed Johnson when he's developing this aesthetic, or is it for function? Maybe.
I think I'm trying to not get hurt, but I want to look like I'm just prepared for the match.
But his knees are exposed, which is the most prone for injury. No.
Maybe I don't know. Well, maybe a torn quad, something like that.
Are knee pads gonna prevent a torn quad?
You see how thick they are?
But I mean, if you tear your quad, I mean, it's not like
either way. And I mentioned earlier how I'd like a Jean-Paul Levesque figure. I'd like to see Ahmed Johnson somehow get signed to a Legends deal because we've never seen an Ahmed Johnson action figure outside of his original run. At least by a major company. I think someone made one recently, one of those,
right,
offshoot companies that do it. But they refer to people as toyetic when you look like a certain way. And I mean, he's jacked. I kind of like all the pads, but I do question the knee pad. The lack of knee pad is puzzling. I like the nose guard though. That was always fun.
Sure, yeah. Helps him breathe. I get it. There's a function to it. He's wet. I mean, look at how shiny this man is.
The shine of the cinch.
The little bicep cuffs.
Right, yeah, they really, I don't know how they didn't just pop off.
I mean, this guy is vascular as all get out.
Oh!
God damn, look at that. I like it. The wrist guards, alternating colors. I mean, this guy's just a fashion icon, I would say.
You wouldn't happen to have a photo of him in WCW, would you?
I do not.
Okay.
That's in my spank bank. That's in a whole other hard drive. But
he doesn't look he just looks. I think he has pants on there too. He just looks a little different.
Well, he's a little more
it's
robust,
big T,
shall we say? WCW. Let me pull up a picture here just for my own.
Yeah, go ahead.
For my own. He's a little more. Yeah, he's got the long boys here. A little wider. But I mean, he's still an intimidating looking dude. I mean,
I wouldn't mess with him.
Jeez Louise. This guy's born to be a pro wrestler. Good golly.
I know. And the Pearl River Plunge, man, that was such a sick move.
Yeah, I mean, especially for the time, you weren't seeing that. I mean,
Yeah.
I guess the Steiners are probably doing it or something, but
Yeah, that's like you imagine a Scott Steiner versus Ahmed Johnson match.
oh, is that that had to have happened in WCW? No,
WCW, no,
Big Papa
because
Pump versus Big T or Sweet T or whatever his name was.
because Sweet Tea. That's the best innovation.
Albert.
Best innovation that McDonald's ever had was adding the dollar sweet tea. I feel.
There you go. Hot take. Hot
Yeah.
take.
But I don't think so. I don't think they ever interact because Scott Steiner's like the main event by that time. Big T was wrestling for the letter T.
Well, I mean,
like come on,
there's a T in Steiner, you know. Scott,
yeah, but he
still pops up.
Okay.
Versus Ahmed
in cage match, and they'd have like a best of 7 series we never knew about. We have to watch it immediately.
Okay, YouTube has a WWE 2K17 version of it, so that's
okay.
Something.
Well, that's that. There you go. It's only fantasy, unfortunately.
Maybe one day. It's not too late. It's not too late.
It's never too late.
It's never too late. Okay, so Ahmed is here, and the whole nation is out here. We got Crush, Farouk, Savio Vega, Clarence Mason, D'Lo Brown, JC Ice, Wolfie D. The whole gang's here. And Gorilla Monsoon comes out. He's gonna shake these guys into shape. He says, "One guy out, everybody else get out of here. Well, not out of here, but go on the stage. You're not interfering in this match."
They should have sat in the Hart Foundation seats, if anything.
Right. Well, not enough seats. I mean, they didn't,
No.
They didn't budget for whatever 8 guys.
No, McMahon's so cheap. Lawler already said it.
Exactly. Which, that's why the nation, they're so angry. So everybody leaves except for Crush. Well, actually, everybody leaves. Crush gets in the ring, but Savio's still ringside. He's like trying to, the way his delivery and like he kept standing there, and Gorilla's like, "No, you too." And Savio's like, "Whoa, me? What?" And then he leaves, which is just
man. Cool. Savio Vega should be in the WWE Hall of Fame.
Is he not? I guess he's not, huh?
Of all the people that have gone in, and it's no disparaging to those people, but Savio Vega is really someone that I think deserves it, if anybody's going to deserve it. And not for Quang, but maybe Quang.
Well, Quang deserves his own slot in the Hall of Fame.
He deserves his own wing.
The Quang wing. The Quang. That's a lot of fun. We have a lot of fun here. So the match gets underway. Ahmed versus Crush, which, seeing those two on paper, bar is in the dirt.
But on pay-per-view.
Well, Crush is here, by the way. Yeah. Super kick to Ahmed, which caught me off guard.
Almost it was interesting to see him.
The wind knocked him over, I think. But I like the attempt. Pile driver from Crush. He's like controlling the match. He's got Ahmed down for the count. But he looks at the nation. He's like, "All right, guys, come on, come here." Which, maybe not the smartest guy, Mr. Crush.
No. That's why he was number 1 in this match.
Disposable. Yeah, first line of defense. Because, what does he want to get? Was he want to get DQ'd right off the bat?
Well, they deployed that for the next fall. So,
yeah, man, maybe that's why the nation did not come as a response to Crush's wave. They're not respecting what Crush wants them to do. So they remain on the stage. Crush goes for the heart punch onto Ahmed, but Ahmed counters it into a pretty nice looking spin kick.
Yeah,
and gets the 1, 2, 3. So I kind of like this little portion of the match.
What's your favorite version of Crush? This version, or Kona Crush, or Evil Crush, or Demolition Crush?
He's Chronic, right? He's in Chronic.
Chronic.
I get him. So it's like Brian. What's Crush's name? Brian Adams, or is that Adam Bomb?
No, that's damn. One of them's Brian Adams. One of them's Brian Clark. I don't know.
Because there's Brian Adams, Brian Clark, and Brian Lee, and I always get those 3. They're all just tall guys.
Yeah, Brian
with long
Lee
hair.
Also. Yeah, have you covered the show with Brian Lee going off the scaffold?
I think I was on the TV. It wasn't on a pay-per-view, so I didn't specifically cover that match. But yes,
okay.
Yes.
Okay, that was like the only. I would always see like Extreme Warfare Volume 1, and all I remember was them showing that clip of him just like getting punched, and then falling through all the tables. Like, what the hell is this?
Undertaker was going crazy in ECW, man. Let me tell you.
Oh man.
But
So
Crush,
favorite era of Crush. Yeah.
Crush. I mean, I haven't seen too much of Kona Crush. Probably Chronic Crush.
There, yeah.
I think he's Chronic, right? He is Chronic, right?
He is in Chronic. Chronic.
Okay. And you know what? I have not seen WCW Chronic. I've only seen WWF Invasion Chronic, and I feel like that's a good bar for me. You know, you can't really. But every time I see like clips of them, it's like, oh, these guys were awesome in WCW.
Check out Halloween Havoc 2000. It's Chronic versus Goldberg in a 2-on-1. It's just a bunch of hosses throwing each other around for a couple minutes. So
I like that. Well,
I like Evil Crush purely because he was such a good guy, and then literally was friends with Macho Man, and then like turned so that you get one final Savage match at Mania 10, which the finish kind of. They botched it a little bit, but I don't know. I liked it.
God, that is Macho's last WWF match, isn't it? That's crazy.
Yeah.
Damn. Well, hopefully this is Crush's last match here because well, no, he's a good guy. Or maybe he's not. I don't know, but he loses here. And we move on to Nation member number 2, Savio Vega, who jumpstarts the match a little bit, takes advantage of Ahmed's fatigue, what have you. Ahmed fights back, though. It's a nice power slam. Savio skedaddles to the outside, grabs a chair, and just beats down Ahmed with this chair, which kind of smart, I guess. You know, you're taking the DQ, but you're leaving him, in scraps for guy number 3. So,
yeah, I just felt like this seemed like we're almost at the tail end of Ahmed. Like the bloom might have fallen off the rose. I think he'd been injured once, if not twice, by this point, and I think he gets injured again soon after, to where he just can't sustain himself as a main guy. Because God, it was him and Sean and Ultimate Warrior were gonna have a match like as a trio, and then Warrior didn't show up for that. But I mean, Ahmed's a huge part of the new generation, I guess. I was going to say new generation because the new generation's like Bret Hart and like 93, 94 guys. But come late 95 and early 96, Ahmed is a star, to be honest.
IC champion. I mean,
yeah.
Deal with Goldust was pretty good. But yeah, this Farouk Nation feud, it's just crazy. I mean, over a year, they tried to make this work. Either Ahmed was hurt, Farouk was hurt. Yeah, it's just.
I do like the Mania 13 Chicago Street Fight though. I really enjoy that because I love how. I mean, Ahmed's got the pads on too, so like, of course he's got the Road Warrior shoulder pads in addition. Like, why wouldn't he have extra pads? Of course it did. It was right there with him.
Right. So Ahmed's won 2 out of 3. So guy number 3 is Farouk, who came out with a sling. Like I mentioned, he's been injured. I think he had like a torn bicep and like some other stuff going on. But apparently he's fine now because he gets to the ring, takes the sling off, and then the beatdown ensues. Farouk has control. You know, this guy Ahmed, he's had 2 matches before this, and Farouk hits the ropes. Ahmed with a huge spine buster, Pearl River plunge. The crowd's going nuts, but Ahmed can't capitalize because he's been beat down too much. Goes for the pin, 1-2 kick out, which you don't see a lot of like quality 2 counts in this era. I feel like so that felt like a cool moment there.
Yeah, you don't really see it as much, especially in the WWF. It was like if you hit your finish, it's either over or the guy can't get to the pin because the ref's down or a run in. It's never like an actual 2 count.
Yeah. So a lot of momentum on Ahmed's side here, but then Farouk with a chop block, former football player, so that's right in his arsenal, and then the Dominator and the 1-2-3. So Farouk, and therefore the Nation wins, which I was kind of so I had never seen the show. I didn't know like who won this match because I know the Nation becomes a very different nation soon. So I was like, okay, maybe the Nation loses here, and then Farouk gets rid of everybody, and then just creates a new nation with Mark Henry, and I know D'Lo's here, but so I was kind of surprised when Farouk got the win here, especially pinning Ahmed Johnson's a pretty big deal still at this point. So
Yeah, they wanted to get Ahmed, like, a couple wins, make sure he's somewhat still strong because he's fighting 3 guys, for God's sake, but he still can't get the win ultimately. So, yeah, like I said, it seemed like Bloom was off the rose, like they were about to just kind of eventually cut ties. I think I want to say he's in the 98 Rumble, and that's like it.
Right. I know by Raw after Mania, I don't think he's there anymore. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, that would make sense. Yeah, I don't think does he wrestle at WrestleMania 14?
I don't remember. Probably not, if I had to guess. But I'm
gonna do some research.
Let's do a little. Let's see where. First of all, where is Ahmed Johnson nowadays? I mean, I'm surprised we've never seen this guy pop up anywhere. Maybe it just doesn't.
I don't. I don't know. I mean, again, he signed some sort of deal to get an action figure made. Let's see. Survivor Series. Yeah, he's at Royal Rumble 98, and then at No Way Out of Texas, the first No Way Out, he is a part of a 8-man tag. He's with 8-Ball, Chains, Ken Shamrock, and Skull versus The Rock, Mark Henry, Kama Mustafa, Farouk, and D'Lo. Actually, a 10-person tag. But that's it. He's not at Mania. And then the next match, he's defeating Booker at Super Brawl 2000.
Just Booker. Yeah, his wrestling, the Wikipedia section, or the wrestling section of his Wikipedia ends at 2003, which crazy last tag team match. He teamed with Monty Brown against Sabu and Gangrel, which that is just a crazy matchup. I need to find that somewhere.
Yeah, we need to unearth that.
It's got to be
pretty crazy. One. He had 23 pay-per-view matches, which is pretty interesting.
I mean, he was always out there, man. When he was healthy, crowd still loves him at this point, but I think we're definitely on the downslope for sure, unfortunately.
And this is purely just random because I did some research on this the other day, but would it shock you that Stan Hansen has only been on 3 pay-per-views ever? I felt for a while he was just on like a lot of the WCW ones in the late 80s, early 90s, but he was on 3. 3.
Yeah, crazy. 3. I would guess more than 3. Because I mean, most of his run was before pay-per-views, no?
Well, he was just not. He was in Japan doing stuff, and so whenever he comes into WCW, I think it's like Havoc 90 against Luger, Starrcade 90 against Luger, and then he gets to do a match with Vader at Wrestle War the following year. But that's it. Like then he's doing it again. He's going back to Japan. So I don't know. It just floored me. So when reading Ahmed had 23, and I just remembered, like, man, a guy like Stan Hansen's only been on pay-per-view 3 times, yet he's like revered. It's pretty wild.
I mean, if that tells us anything, it tells us that Ahmed is 7 times as good as Stan Hansen. So
at least
that's if the math checks out. We'll call up Scott Steiner to make sure. But yeah. So Nation continues. Ahmed is sad, but we're here at the no holds barred match.
Oh yeah,
Vader, Ken Shamrock. I guess the terminology of mixed martial arts hasn't really like manifested yet. I don't even know if in UFC they call it that at this point or not. I think it's just like ultimate fighting.
Yeah, and this is probably the start of when, because people still do it now, where it's just MMA is just UFC.
Yeah.
Oh, that UFC stuff, like that's the only. It's Coke, it's Pepsi, it's that
WWE.
It's that WWF stuff, like that's always just one brand. Although Lawler called it Ultimate Fighting junk. So
nice.
Again, let's just shred everything. It's on our show, but I'm going to knock it down.
Classic King. But the rules of this match, you can only win by knockout or submission. There's no pinfalls, no standing 8 count, which I guess is I thought it was a 10 count in boxing, but whatever. What do I know? So it's an MMA match. What did Shayna Baszler and Ronda? What did they call that? Was it just a fighting?
Well, they had the fight pit that was similar to the Lion's Den, but that's not what those two did.
It was like a SummerSlam, maybe. Hold on, Ronda. I'm doing a lot of research on this.
The research episode of the
yeah, sponsored by Google versus Shayna. It's just MMA rules, I guess, is what it was called, which is pretty much what this was. I would say this was a little better though. Vader and Ken Shamrock.
Well, again, this is a guy who does UFC and a guy that is stiff anyway. Like, it's perfect.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's hard sometimes, I feel like, to translate that style into a pro wrestling realm. But I feel like these guys did a pretty good job, especially because, the audience probably isn't accustomed to this style. So it's still very novel to them. Whereas like nowadays, it's like you see UFC everywhere. But yeah, like you said, Vader and Ken Shamrock, I feel like there's no better two guys to put in here. And it's this establishes Ken Shamrock. It was a little clunky, but I think by nature, I think that helped it in a lot of ways.
I like that though. That makes it more realistic and authentic. And to the fans, it's like they're really tattooing each other in there. Like, why not?
Yeah, no, for sure. And it was I don't think this is Ken's first match. It's one of his first matches.
Yeah, because he was just referee the month prior.
Yeah, I mean, it's his first big match, if nothing else. And I mean, throwing out the leg kicks, the suplexes. Like I said, I enjoyed this. What'd you think about it?
I loved it. Huge Vader fan, as you know. Lawler brought up Inoki and Ali in regards to like the work shoot nature of it, which I thought was pretty cool. Again, as much as he's shredding other things, he's somewhat referencing the past huge match that like transcended boxing and wrestling in regards to Ken Shamrock and Vader. So it's putting it over pretty big. And it's, again, him saying Ultimate Fighting junk when you look at it now, and UFC and WWE are the exact same company. It's insane. The kicks to Vader, I don't know if it was this match or some other one that he might have had with Shamrock, where I remember seeing like Vader admitted you can tell Shamrock is laying them in and it's really hurting Vader's legs. Like he's not necessarily getting pissed, but he's struggling dealing with how it's going, because it's not really a work kick, because they're gonna go for it. I have insane strength by Ken Shamrock in this, because he's just lifting him up and throwing him around, and
like a lot of Vader deadlift suplexes too. Very impressive.
And Vader is a 450. Like he's not, worked 450. He's a big ass dude. The front facing suplex from the inside. Like Vader had him and then just dumped Shamrock to the floor from the outside, or to the outside like that.
Dude, Shamrock's bumping and his selling in this match was really good. I mean, the way he just kind of transitioned into pro wrestling from MMA. You see a lot of guys, they struggled transitioning, but I thought, there's a reason he had a pretty solid run after this. I thought and this intro to Shamrock was pretty impressive.
And we know what he will, eventually take in regards to the chair shot to the face. Like he was willing to do anything in there to put over the company. Did he ever wrestle Kurt Angle in WWF? Let's go to the Google machine.
I bet you, I don't know if they ever did that on TV. I bet you they did that somewhere else.
It was like the timing. Angle comes in Survivor Series 99, and Shamrock had to have been just out, probably going back to UFC by then, because I remember him being huge in the last 03, 04, 05 in UFC. So they might have missed each other there, because I felt that'd have been, you talked about transitioning into pro wrestling. Kurt Angle is that too. He went from
like the number one guy
shoot wrestling into one of the greatest pro wrestlers ever, and it was so natural. And this is not the same, but I kind of liken that to a Logan Paul, where like if you're just athletic, it doesn't necessarily work. But if you can do it and it's in you, but you've never done it, then you kind of find out, maybe I am really good at this. You know, you never know who's really good at pro wrestling.
Yeah, like the in between stuff. Like anybody can learn how to do a move, but to work the crowd, to pace a match,
selling.
Yeah, I mean,
knowing where the hard cam is. Damn it.
But yeah, so there's one portion of this match that I want to get your thoughts on. So I think Shamrock has Vader in like a triangle choke. Vader tries to power out, but they just like kind of crumble to the floor. And I couldn't tell which one of them said it, but somebody said, "Fuck, sorry." Was that Ken? Or is it
That
Vader? Doesn't strike me as
sounds
the guy that would say sorry.
no. You say that, but I'm Vader. We'll talk. We'll see it in the dark side of the ring. I think Vader had a softer side. I remember when he broke the back of Joe Thurman in WCW with a power bomb. He was like really concerned after he pinned him. He like hunched over and was like really concerned that he practically killed this guy.
Yeah.
So I would wager, especially in the WWF, and this is Shamrock's first match. I'd have to rewatch it. I didn't actually catch that, but I would wager it was probably Vader. Well, I can see both. If it would be Vader, if I don't want to ruin Ken's first big match, and Shamrock not wanting to ruin his first match with a veteran who's done it all.
Right.
So, but I mean, again, it made it more authentic.
No, yeah. I mean, I didn't hate the. I don't even want to call it a botch. It just felt like a fight, So,
they should have these two guys do a Raw Underground match.
Imagine. But yeah, so this is Vader goes for a moonsault, misses it.
Oh man,
thank God he did. Ken.
Well, he kind of hit it because Shamrock. I don't know why. When did they decide I have to either roll towards the corner or I should roll out further? Because sometimes they're indecisive, and Shamrock goes to the corner, and like half of his shoulder gets hit by I think Vader's like head or his chest area. So, but Shamrock's like sold it like no, he didn't hit me, even though I think he definitely got hit by a little bit.
I think he overestimated the hang time that Vader would get, so I think he just rolled a little too late. But again, it's his first match here, so growing pains, I guess, in a literal sense. But
yeah.
But after that, Ken, who's still on his back, picks the ankle of Vader, grabs the ankle lock, and Vader taps out, which tapping out, by the way, this might be the first tap out like ever. Because for the longest time, it's just like, oh, the guy gets put in the submission and they submit like the Lex Luger fucking rack, and they always got him in the rack and they just ring the bell. Like, oh, he's probably done.
I watched that today, actually. The Nitro 100, because I successfully, I can't believe this happened. I went to Walmart, and I would keep bringing up action figures, and I've been waiting for the Ultimate Edition Luger from that night to come out, and I found one, so I couldn't believe it. So I had to rewatch that to have that like memory again. And I'm pretty sure I brought it up to you before, but in the it's Luger, there's two other heads. The regular title, the NWO title, and then it comes with the pink towel, because after the match in the back, they use paint thinner and the giant rubs off NWO with the pink rag. So they added that for detail.
That's so awesome. The detail, man, is crazy.
It is crazy. So,
but yeah, we get a little
tapping out
here.
I think you're right. Now, I also thought, before they've also done throwing in the towel. Bob Backlund, and then Bob Backlund again with Brett at Survivor Series 94. So tapping is the thing now, though. What?
When Brett was eating the chicken wing for like 20 minutes.
Oh my God, the whole match.
What a fucking time. Bob Backlund in 94, man. Who would have thought? But yeah, I mean, I love this match. I thought it set the tone for Ken Shamrock really well. It was a cool thing to kind of throw in the show. It was something different than the rest of the matches. Again,
for sure.
All thumbs up. All the thumbs I have.
Same. And I also thought it was interesting. They acknowledged the sign in the crowd that said Mike Tyson is a coward. Yet less than a year later, he's brought in which literally like changed everything. It jettisoned the Attitude Era and everything.
I'm glad you brought that up, because Ken challenged Mike Tyson to a match on Raw, which I don't think ever materialized in anything between those two. But I thought it was pretty interesting that they wasn't just them shooting their shot and hoping he would respond, and just delay it, I guess. I don't know if you remember that at all. I mean, it caught me by surprise.
They brought it up. I think they brought that up when they brought up the sign. And do you know the history of it's supposed to be like it was it the main event back in 89 or 90, and Tyson was supposed to be the referee, but he got knocked out by Buster Douglas. So Buster Douglas ended up being the referee for a match. It was like, I don't know if it was Savage and Hogan or like a tag match or something, but it was supposed to be Tyson, and that would have been in 90 or 89, way before the Attitude Era. And he got knocked out surprisingly, and I had to just use the guy who won instead. And lo and behold, it kind of turned out in WWE's favor because Tyson got more nuts as time went on.
I mean, some people say the Attitude Era started with Stone Cold, Vince McMahon, The Rock, but you're telling me that Buster Douglas birthed the Attitude Era?
In a butterfly effect, sure.
No, I think it's pretty direct. I'm running with it. That's what I'm gonna yell from the rooftops whenever anybody asks me. Which is very.
Anytime you say from the rooftops, I keep thinking of that moment from that spring break episode of Nitro where Hogan's out there and he looks way, way, way in the distance, and somehow he goes, "That's the wall, brother." And they pan out, and he's like a mile away on a rooftop of a building, like doing a choke slam thing. And it's like, how the hell did Hogan know that? Come on.
He eats his vitamins. It helps your eyesight. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, sure.
That's what they say. It's always taken.
I hear that the Real American Beer is actually the new sponsor of Eyesight.
Oh, is it? Is it?
Yeah.
I'm still trying to get my hands. Have you had that beer yet?
I have not. I'm curious because I am a fan of the Broken Skull IPA.
Very good. Yes.
And I've mentioned to people before, I don't know if I've said it to you, but like how genius that was. Like sometimes the easiest, like the layup option is the best. Like Steve Austin having his own beer is like genius. Yep. So he did it. Like
Undertaker has a wine, which I have as well. I've not tried it yet.
I don't think I've tried. Oh, and then I know you love Terramana.
Yeah. I don't know if you can see it in the background.
I know. I can see it right there. I think I asked you brother. What's on your bookshelf during your interview on my show.
Hell yeah. Did a little sipping
about that. And I think isn't there a regular beer of Broken Skull now? Like a non-IPA?
Yeah, there's a lager.
Like a lager? See, I need to try that because I mean I like the IPA, but I'm not a real big IPA guy, so I'd like to try the just straight up beer.
So the best one he has, which I've only seen, so I went to California a few years ago and went to the brewery.
El Segundo.
El Segundo, and they had a double IPA from Broken Skull Ranch, and I think
triple IPA.
Oh god damn, quadruple! But no, that's probably the best. It wasn't even like when I think of double IPA, I think of like a hoppier IPA, but it was smoother than the normal IPA. So if you ever find the double IPA, the Dippa from Broken Skull,
I'll have to look for that. For sure. But no, I have not tried Hogan's beer. I mean, I don't really care, but I would like to try it to see if it's good or bad.
I gotta know. It's like I had to get fucking Ric Flair's mushroom energy drink.
I got it so I could get a picture with Ric Flair.
You got a picture with yours?
Yeah. So he was at the local, I don't know if you guys have it. It's Giant Eagle. It's a local grocery store, but they think they go to Ohio and stuff. I don't know how deep they go into the South, but as if you're like in Texas or something. But, it was the beginning of that drink being a thing, and before AEW got a hold of it, and he was doing a little like meet and greet at these Giant Eagles, and the one day he was hitting 3 of them in one day, and the one was somewhat near me, but it was at 5 p.m., so I knew I could make it after work, so I flew up there. You had to, I stood in line, I had my Super Brawl 4 Vader and Flair shirt on, and there was a huge line. You had to buy a 6-pack of those drinks, which was like $25 or something. But you get to meet Ric Flair with it. And I was like, that's like nothing to meet Ric Flair. Like of all people, the meet and greets for some of these guys now are astronomical. I waited in line, and another fun fact: I was waiting in line, and the people were kind of doing social media stuff, or asked certain people to give them their best woo, and they went to me because I looked like a mark. And I gave it to them, and they let me swap out one of my cans for a signed one. So I still have that a signed Ric Flair can. But then I went in to meet him because of that. So shout out to Woo Energy, whatever it's
shout out.
You know,
give me a rating. Give me a rating out of 10 for Woo Energy.
The one flavor was really good. I'd say like a 7 or 8 out of 10.
I had no was it the blue one? There was one because I've had it too. I had like a variety pack, and there was one that was
I just
good.
picked random cans. I don't know.
I don't know.
The one was really good, but the other one's like, I don't know, like Mushroom Energy. What the hell is this? Like, he couldn't have just come out with something normal, you know? It is Ric Flair, though.
It tasted like there's mushrooms in it. That's the only way I can put it. Or
yeah, I believe it. I was
like,
you know what? Well, we have another match to cover.
Oh yeah, we're talking about In Your House. Speaking of drinking Ric Flair, we got the Undertaker defending the WWF title against
The
Stone
title.
Cold Steve Austin. The whoop at the belt. Beat everybody.
Damn it, you can't say belt.
Belt holds up your pants. Taker, Austin. These guys have almost like over the time, people have like, the running thing is that like they don't have great chemistry with each other. Like there's not a lot of good Stone Cold Undertaker matches, but this one I thought was pretty solid. What'd you think about it?
Same. And I mean, the first I can think of is that botch they had at SummerSlam 98.
Yeah.
And like it ruined the whole thing.
What I always think about, yeah.
I think you're right on that. Because it's crazy. Like if it was Austin and Triple H or Austin the Rock or Taker and Triple H and Taker and the Rock or Angle and every other pairing with both guys was like thumbs up across the board. Yet these guys never seemed to click. Yet this match I feel like did. I have here that this is Austin's 5th WWF title opportunity. Yet it's only the second one on TV. The first being that Final Four match. He had 3 on random international shows against Shawn and Sid, I believe. I did my research before the show on that.
Look at that.
So, but this is, he's an ascending star. Did you think the theme music sounded weird without a pop? It was just like it was like a weird sounding glass break. It didn't sound like the normal one. It sounded like lame. and like a year later, it's like the biggest thing ever.
It's like if you threw like a glass window on some grass. It's like,
it's or like had it laying on grass, and then you just like broke it on there instead of just having it break naturally. But I don't know. The crowd was into it, especially when the Hart Foundation showed up. I really enjoyed that. It sucked that, like God, 4 out of the 5 guys there are all gone. Like crazy, dude. Like, and Brett, the guy who's in the wheelchair, is still alive. Like the one that's portrayed as the weakest is the guy that's still around.
Insane. And it's like pretty soon after that, like within like 5 years, 3 of them are gone. It's just
Anvil lasted the longest, which is crazy.
Who would have bet on that?
But this is 2 months away from Canadian Stampede, where this is at the highest point for all those guys. Owen being brought over the railing by Austin only for Taker to throw it back. Like Owen being that guy. I don't know who I was trying to equate who he would be today. And the only thing I could come up with, and maybe this is blasphemy, is Dom Mysterio. Like a guy that is he's hated, but you love him because you grew up with Dom, being in the custody of Dominic Ladder match, but now he's a mega heel. Yet everybody probably has a soft spot for him for real. And Owen was like the same thing, although I think a lot of that might have come after he passed, which is unfortunate. But him being just like the guy that, let's throw him around, and he's the guy out of all the guys there, he's the guy that they picked on. So I thought that was great. And then I also noted, I don't know what move happened, but Lawler was like, what is that? And like JR, of course, called it perfectly and said, if you moved away from Memphis, you would know more about these holds. Yes. Just like finally shredding Lawler for, being stuck in his ways. So
what was it? I know we were talking about, it wasn't the figure 4. What? No, because Lawler would know that.
Right. I don't know what it was. Some sort of interesting maneuver what a maneuver. I don't even know what it was. That's how much I pay attention.
I mean, a lot of this match was like, it was a very gritty match. Like you could tell they're calling a lot of it in the ring.
Both, which is fine. Those are guys that are top of their game.
Yeah, sure. No, it felt like a brawl between, because these two guys, Undertaker's top babyface in the company. Austin is like still kind of in between, but he's definitely leaning towards babyface. He's
so close. They there was like a sign that said like Austin for president, and Lawler was like, "Can you imagine him running the country?"
He's red hot, yeah.
Which is crazy considering he ran the company pretty much for the next 2.5-3 years. So Kind of a little bit of a
Yeah.
foreshadowing there, but they had no idea what they had. I don't think. Like, they knew he was a big deal and he won the Rumble and everything, but they
Right.
had no clue that he was about to be the guy.
Yeah, I mean, they were like on Raws. Most of the Raws were dedicated to segments and/or matches with him and the Hart Foundation because we're in the heat of Austin versus the Harts. Obviously, following up on the trio of matches between Stone Cold and Brett. The Hart Foundation has like just recently come together.
Yep.
Pillman came back and joined them like 2 weeks before this. Anvil the week after that. So they're in full form, with the exception of Brett being in a wheelchair due to having knee surgery. But he's still ringside to support his boys. And but yeah, so that's kind of just the scene for this match. A lot of the build up has been Austin more focused on the Hearts and kind of looking past the Undertaker. So old Take is none too pleased with this, but he still doesn't like the Hearts either. So like you said, they're Austin ripping Owen over the barricade and hockey fighting him, and then Taker getting out and also beating the shit out of Owen was just tremendous.
I forgot to mention earlier that they called Brett the wheelchairman of the WWF.
That's a lot of fun. That's the role model,
Oh,
to
wow.
Britt Baker.
Yeah, and Bailey.
And Bailey. Look at that. Whenever I see Bailey, I'm like, yeah, she's like the new Undertaker. So that makes a lot of sense.
That's right. Well, Rhea Ripley got to ride on the bike. Well, no, she didn't.
The bike?
She was there while he had the bike on the first Raw on Netflix.
Taker's bike. I thought you were talking about Bailey's bike. I was like, when did Bailey have the bike?
No. You must have missed that. You must have been not watching.
I guess. Over my head.
Can't wait for you to hit that in the timeline.
Yeah, in 40 years. So Taker, maybe my favorite part of the match, other than the finish. So Austin's in control. He's working the leg. That's a lot of what this match is. Taker starts to fight back. And then Stone Cold, he like shoves the ref so he's not looking at him. Just kicks Undertaker right in the dick. Ref turns back around. He's like, hey, did you kick him in the dick? Austin's like, nah. Ref turns around to look at Taker. Austin flips off the ref. Austin walks towards Taker. Taker low blows him. And then Hebner flips off Austin.
Wonderful work. And, people will complain about like a Rick Knox or some of the AEW referees really being involved. But I think Earl Hebner was allowed to do that then because he's one of the most important. And this is still before the screw job. So he doesn't have that ego of, hey, I was the one. I screwed Brett.
Yeah.
He sold those damn T-shirts forever, So I like the interaction between the referee and Austin and Taker here. That it really shows you that he's just pronouns pal. Hebner is just as important, and a referee for that matter, to a match as the two guys in the ring are. They have to call stuff. They have to integral part. So
someone's got to get these guys. Someone's got to keep these two guys straight. But
yeah,
it was some good stuff there. Taker, it's a choke slam. Pretty good looking choke slam. You didn't see a lot of good choke slams on Stone Cold in this era, but
no,
this is a good one. We're still, pre neck break, so I don't know if that has anything to do with it. But
I know, crazy.
Stone Cold hits the
and
stunner.
We'll talk about that in a little bit.
Yeah,
the tombstone.
It's very interesting.
I was like, oh no,
it's like protect your neck, Steve.
Yeah,
he hits the stunner, goes for the pin, but we hear the bell ring. The old Brian Pillman ringside ringing the bell.
He's a loose cannon.
Some say that. Some say. Everyone's distracted. Hey, why is he ringing that bell? But you would think, hey, maybe just keep counting. And I don't know.
I know. What's going on?
The bell doesn't lie, though. Usually.
No.
So, but the finish was beautiful. Taker goes for the tombstone. Steve counters 69 style into his own tombstone. Then Taker does it to him and then hits the tombstone, which this is a spot that happens a lot over the years following that. It doesn't always look so fluid, but this was just perfectly done. And then Steve getting dropped on his dome, which is a bit jarring, like we mentioned, to see, but that gives old Take the win, retains his title, and maybe one of the better matches these two ever had, honestly.
It might be the best match they ever had, at least high profile. I know that they had like a first blood match and certain matches, later on in the timeline that you'll eventually get to right here on the Apron bump. But
Covered some of their like Ruthless Aggression era matches too, which none of those were particularly
Yeah.
great, but you know.
That's just the tombstone to tombstone to tombstone, the crowd got hot and hotter and then pop, like
Yes.
it worked. It was so cool to see because I had no idea. I don't know, I probably forgot what the finish was, but as soon now, if I can't recall, Taker gets him up for it. Did Austin do the reverse from the side or did they tip back?
They tipped
For
back.
that first one. Okay.
Yeah.
That's even more impressive then because Taker's a bigger dude.
I didn't think it was
for
going to
sure.
get him up. Yeah.
I know. So he does that, and then to flip it back, I'm like, man. And then that's the finish. Like that. Not many finishes can be written and be like, this is what we're gonna do, and it pay off like that. So I felt it was wonderful. And we'll get to the post match here in a moment. So I'll let you take that.
No, yeah, man, that finish was great. I don't think it had been done, at least not with Taker at this point. So that was cool to see. Crowd responded. It was amazing. And Taker celebrating, or he's about to, but the Hart Foundation storms the ring, mugs the Undertaker, Pillman, Owen, Anvil, Bulldog. They mug Taker in the corner, which leaves Austin, who had just been tombstone, so he's just kind of there in the corner. But then Austin comes to, and he sees Brett.
He just goes for Brett instead of helping Taker. I love it.
He just knocks his wheelchair over like a dick.
He tips him over. It was so funny.
I'm expecting him to just jump on him, rabbit punches, but no, he goes out of his way to tip the wheelchair.
Well, right, because I was wondering, like, how I mean, of course he's really hurt, but like, how hurt was Brett to where he couldn't take Austin just diving on him? Because then that kind of ruins the whole thing.
No, that's actually a good point. It's probably, I guess that's why they did that. Yeah.
Yeah, because the only other thing I can remember with the wheelchair is Michael's Sweet Chin Music on him, and he just falls back out of the chair. So you can only do so many things that weren't affecting his legit injury.
Right.
Is Brett back by July? Is he in that? He's in that Canadian Stampede match, right?
I'm pretty sure he is. Yeah.
Okay, so he's better off by then.
Right. He's probably like okay. The wheelchair is probably hamming it up a bit, I would assume.
Right.
But I don't know. There's a crutch also with him. So Steve takes the crutch, runs in the ring, runs off all the Hearts. Taker gives a choke slam to Owen. And then Steve, you think, oh, these guys are on the same page, common enemy, but no, Stone Cold gives the stunner to the Undertaker, flips him off and skedaddles, which is just, that's what his character is. So it's consistent.
Bruce Pritchard always said Hogan must pose, but in the Attitude Era, well, almost, Austin must stun.
No beer yet, though. He's a sober boy.
They didn't know what they were about to lean into. Like all these little nuances that just weren't there yet. Yet he was a big star. Then he gets a mega star, and it's beer, simple T-shirt, beating up the boss. Like everything works.
Almost there, man. Almost. But on just the way that the show ended. Because there's a lot of shows in this era where it's like, oh, it's a DQ, dusty finish, and then it kind of just fades away. But the way the match finish was satisfying, then the angle after, you have stunner to Taker, flips him off, runs away, chases the Hearts away, but then Taker sits up. And you can hear the crowd like go nuts when Taker sits up. Taker and storms to the back. No, I don't think they did. I would assume he sat up. Like
that was a WCW camera cut there.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's miss all the important stuff, but we can hear the crowd, so you can infer.
I guess that's all that matters. But yeah, it's just the beats, then like the tempo of everything that happened towards the end was good, and it made me want to watch Raw the following night. So again, just a good, clean match, and it's kind of the theme of the night. Most everything was at least good to great, I thought.
Yeah, I felt the show opened strong. I felt the middle was good, but it wasn't anything super spectacular. And then it closes out with, and it was cool to see the, Rock and Mankind 2 years before their real big rivalry, even though even in 98, they're pretty big stars. They're just not, Survivor Series 98 is when it all kind of changes for both those guys.
Right.
But then the final two matches were, hard hitting Shamrock and Vader. I wouldn't have wanted anybody to have Shamrock's first match than a guy that was already as close to MMA as you could get. He had those gloves that were kind of ahead of its time, It's Vader time.
It's time.
And I wanted to bring that up, like, as much as people kind of, especially with the discourse of how none of the Royal Rumble themes mattered this past week because of Def Rebel. I loved Vader's music because you knew exactly who it was. He said it, and they're playing off something that was only a phrase before. Now it's like a catchphrase.
Right.
It's the beginning of the song. We know it's Vader time. It's So I was cool to see those two guys, and then like we've been talking about, Taker and Austin having this match where sure they might have had higher profile matches later, but sometimes the early ones are the ones that you want to hold on to because they might not get better than this. So hell of a way to end the show.
I agree. And I'm starting to think this little run, this title run from Undertaker is like severely underrated because previous month, I would argue the best match with Mankind that he ever had as well. So he's on a pretty good run. He has a match with Brett at SummerSlam, which I don't remember a lot about that. I know the finish, but I don't remember. I know the finish, but I don't remember a lot about the match itself.
The whole match, it's just the whole thing is probably one of the best overall booked matches and finishes that they've done ever. So you're in for a treat. Yeah, because people kind of take a dump on his run because it was over. It was over. Big pay-per-view to big pay-per-view, Mania to SummerSlam, which is interesting. So
yeah,
maybe it was underrated.
I'm starting to think so. But speaking of ratings, what would you rate this show on a scale of 0 to 100? And for context, if this helps, this is what I've graded the show so far this year. Just to give you a little like baseline.
Look at that. Look at that uncensored. No, sold out 97. I could have told you just without looking at this, I could have told you that was going to be the lowest score. But it's nice seeing 81, 78, 70.
WCW's killing it.
And then look at that. Look at that ECW first actual pay-per-view being so damn good.
Yeah.
And I would say this is definitely a rebound from Revenge of the Taker. So yes. I would say I could give this a solid 70, maybe 72, 73. I would say the majority of the matches were solid. I only had an issue with like the lull of the Ahmed match, but they were just trying to advance that story, yet keep Ahmed hot. But I don't know. I didn't really add as much as I feel like they would have wanted it to. But every other part I was pretty intrigued with. And even the opening match was a really damn good match. And it's cooler to rate it based on hindsight, knowing where people will go. So I would have rated it higher had these guys been fully formed, in a couple years.
Yeah, for sure.
Where they're at now, it was good for the time, but they weren't really there yet. But, it's still pretty solid rating to me.
Yeah, I think 70, maybe mid 70s at the highest. Definitely a stark rebound from Revenge of the Taker for sure. So maybe they heard some criticisms, or maybe it's just how the cards fell. But
they heard your ratings.
They did. This kid that is 4 years old, he's gonna have a podcast one day. And they're like, "What's a podcast?" And they're like, "Mind your damn business."
What's the internet? They just keep asking different questions.
But speaking of juice, internet juice. If your internet is working, your modem has a lot of juice. Speaking of juice.
Yeah.
Juice Springsteen. Glad to have you once again. Always a good time with you, man. Appreciate you checking out the show, coming on, talking about it. Where can everybody sip from the juice box?
Everybody can throw their straw into the juice box every Friday, at least every Friday. Sometimes I got more episodes. Who really knows? I've been doing some Thursday night things with Andrew Baydala, and then I put them out on the feed anyway. So who knows what you'll get audio from me. But at least one episode a week. Talk everything current, like to go back, like doing interviews as I've done here with the Apron Bump. Kyle doing a great job, giving me all the insights on what's on that beautiful bookshelf back there and why cats are awesome and some of the other stuff. I can't really recall what we
Me neither. I listened to it when it came out. I forgot all about it. So I need to listen to it again. Everything is evergreen on the juice box. So everybody should go listen.
That's the only thing I can really benefit to say that like is different from with my podcast and some others. Although yours is also evergreen because it's in a timeline series. So I think evergreen stuff works. And that's why I like interviewing people in regards to their life instead of what they're currently doing. Although I'm not adverse to that, but and follow me on Twitter at Juicy Steen.
Hell yeah. Well, it's time. It's time to end. See, I can almost do it. It's like was it Star Wars, Star Trek?
Star Trek, yeah.
He does this.
Live long and prosper. That's AEW.
Double scissor.
That. Can you do you know what I'm talking about whenever I refer to Vince McMahon doing his middle finger and why it was bizarre compared to everybody else doing it?
Wasn't it just like really long?
But he'd have like all his fingers to be up still while he did it. Like it wasn't like this. It was like, look at it. I can't even do it. My hands are gonna like fall off. I can't do it. But it was always weird how I can recall him being like wheeled away at Mania 22 after his street fight with Shawn, flipping him off, but like all his knuckles are still up. Like he just does it a weird way. I don't know.
That's the worst thing about Vince McMahon is his middle finger. That's what you always say.
Oh yeah, I'm sure that's the worst.
Does nothing else with that finger.
Once again, thank you to Juicy J for joining me on this episode. Always a good old time with Juice. Go check out the Juice Box wherever you listen to podcasts, as well as YouTube and all that stuff. Follow all of his shenanigans on all the socials. All of that is in the description. Go check him out. Go check me out. Hey, you know what time it is? Veda Tam. No, it's time to hit that jingle, Bartholomew.
WCW, ECW, WWF. Who's the hardest promotion? Eric or Vince or Paulie? I think we can agree, though. Heck, Myers is the shit.
Alrighty then. The hardest promotion battle of 1997 continues. WWF versus WCW versus ECW. The current score: WCW is in the lead with 34 points. ECW in second with 20 points. And WWF bringing up the rear with 4 points. Where do these points come from, hardest part of the ring? I know you all are yelling at your radios. Well, let me tell you. First of all, if you're watching on YouTube, I'm sharing my screen right now. You can walk along with me visually. But if you're listening in audio land, I'll also walk you through it here. So we're looking at the overall scoreboard here. But first things first, we got to grade this show because it feeds into the overall scoreboard. So we're going to grade In Your House 15 from a scale of 0 to 100, grade school style. So what are we thinking here? 0 to 100. So we talked about it a little bit at the end of the episode here. We were thinking like low 70s, maybe mid 70s. I think that's the ballpark that we're working in, right? Which, stark contrast from WrestleMania, from In Your House 14, which was an abysmal show, almost the worst show of the year. But now we're back into one of the best, I would say. Not the best, but it's up there. I'm thinking 70. So WrestleMania's got a 73. I don't know if I'd put this up. I don't think it's better than WrestleMania 13. I'm thinking maybe like 71, perhaps. CyberSlam's got a 70. Final Four is a 60. Was that kind of harsh on Final Four? I guess most of the show was kind of shitty, huh? I think 71's pretty fair. We'll go 71 for In Your House 15. So we refresh this. Bang, bang, boom. So now the question is, which promotion has the highest average score for their shows? WWF, pretty good performance here, but still in last in terms of average score. So as of right now, ECW just barely has the highest average score with a 72.67. WCW with a 72.0. So ECW maintains these 15 points for having the highest average score. Best TV product among these companies. Currently, we are tracking WCW as the best. I'm inclined to agree still. WWF, because keep in mind, we're off the heels off of recapping a WWF show, so that's really what's going to be driving any of these changes. Raw is still like anything with Brett and Shawn and Stone Cold is good from Raw. Everything else is pretty much a throwaway at best. It's getting a little better. It was terrible at the beginning of the year. It's trending upwards, but I think Nitro is still overall probably the best weekly stuff from any of these companies. ECW is fine, but it's kind of in a weird spot. It's mainly a highlight show, but with some good promos and stuff. But yeah, overall, I think WCW still maintains these 15 points for having the best TV. Best in-ring product. Best in-ring. So we're talking bell to bell here. We are tracking WCW as the best. Listen, WWF, I mean, they had some good stuff on this show. I think WCW might still edge them out a bit just because I think they have more. I feel like they have more breadth, you know, because they have the cruiserweights, they have your traditional wrestling, they have the tag team stuff, they have a little hardcore in there, they got like the Glacier and Mortis stuff. I think it's more of a robust buffet of stuff, and most of it's at least good. Whereas WWF, it's like you got some really good stuff, but then you got some really bad stuff, and there's honestly not a lot of like stylistic diversification on WWF. So, and ECW is kind of in a weird spot right now. It's whatever. It's ECW, but I wouldn't put it as the best. I'm going to leave WCW as the best in ring at this point in time. So they maintain those 10 points. Best out of ring. So we're talking promos, characters, storylines, what have you. Just overall, best out of ring stuff. We're tracking WCW as the best. Yeah, I mean, I don't see any reason to change it. Look, the Hart Foundation, that stuff is all good. Stone Cold is really breaking out as a character. That's great. Outside of that, though, man, there's just not a lot. Like I said, similar to the in-ring. It's very top heavy, not very spread out. Whereas WCW, you can kind of say the same for WCW because everything is NWO. At least everything good. Well, that's not even true because you got the Horsemen and the Dungeon of Doom stuff. You got the Ric Flair, you got the Mongo, you got the football. We'll talk more about this in the next WCW show, which will be upcoming next week, I think, or the week after. Right now, we're just going to leave it at WCW because I think the NWO stuff is still pretty good. And it's like a thread that weaves throughout everything, directly or indirectly. And I think just overall, it's the best right now. So we'll keep it at WCW. So no changes yet as we move on to the best section, the section labeled the best. Best match of the year so far. We're tracking Bret versus Stone Cold, WrestleMania 13. Nothing on this show outdid that. Nothing on TV leading up to this from any company outdid that. So WWF maintains those 5 points. Wrestler of the year, Stone Cold is what we're tracking now. And with this performance on this show, I don't see any reason to knock him off. So let's keep old Stephen Cold on there. So WWF holds on to those 5 points. Best character / storyline. Okay. Let's think about this. So we're tracking Taz Sabu. That whole storyline, that whole dynamic. We're tracking that as the best. Does the Hart Foundation overtake this? Or even Hart Foundation versus Stone Cold, that whole thing, right? Does that overtake this? Because Taz and Sabu is a very interesting storyline. They had their match at Barely Legal, which we talked about. It was a good match. Then you got the Fonzie turn after it, seemingly prolonging it. Does that jump the shark a bit for this feud, though, is the question. Or is the feud even really continuing? Is it more of a Taz versus Fonzie thing? Still a lot of questions. I think now, granted, even if we remove Taz and Sabu from this, it could always come back later down the line. As of right now, my heart is saying, hold on. See what I just did there? My heart is saying we change this to the Hart Foundation. Bret Hart, because Bret Hart's character is so we've been talking about this throughout the entire year, right? How his heel turn was so organic and it was so like unique. And now he's got this faction around him. The Brian Pillman stuff contributes to it a lot. Owen, Bulldog, the whole thing. Neidhart. Fuck it, man. We're doing it. Hart Foundation. Best character storyline as of this moment in time. So WWF takes those 5 points away from ECW. Best segment of the year so far. We're tracking DDP giving the diamond cutter to Scott Hall as the best from WCW. Trying to remember if any like really interesting segments happened. I feel like there is. I'm just not remembering anything with, again, not to just keep it on the Stone Cold Bret Hart train, but I feel like there might have been some stuff there. Maybe not. Maybe not. You know what? We'll leave it. We'll leave it. Nothing's coming to mind right away, so there's probably nothing better than this. The DDP Diamond Cutter to Scott Hall. It was such a big moment at the time, so WCW holds on to those 5 points. Worst. Now we move on to the worst section. Worst match of the year. We're tracking Undertaker versus Sid. WrestleMania 13. Yeah, we're going to leave that. Nothing on this show was worse than that, that's for sure. Worst wrestler of the year. Prince Iakea. Kind of want to put Savio Vega here, if I could be frank. Fucking stinks, dude. But so does Prince Iakea. He had a bad match with Rey Mysterio. What are you doing? What are you doing, Prince? Yeah, no one's really striking me from WWF that would overtake this, anyways. So yeah, we'll leave it at old Iakea here as the worst. Now the worst character / storyline. We're tracking the whole business with the Honky Tonk Man, Billy Gunn, and Jesse James. Yeah, we're gonna leave it at that. That's a strong contender. Some work is gonna have to be done to knock this off of this post. Is all I'm gonna say. So WWF holds on to that -3 points. And worst segment of the year, Miss NWO. I'm like I said, I've said this in the previous couple of episodes. I'm inclined to just gray this out, not even touch it anymore, because no segment in 1997 is going to be worse than that horse shit stuff from Sold Out 97. Miss NWO. So yeah, WCW holds on to that. So with that, only a 5-point swing here, but WWF gains some ground. They're still in last, but with 9 points. ECW with 15 points. WCW still with 34. So really the story here, I guess, is that WCW kind of extended their lead a bit. You know, a few more cars in between them for all my NASCAR fanatics out there. So, but yeah, that's about it. What do we think, gang? Do you disagree? Do you agree? There's something I'm overlooking, something that I'm just plain wrong about. Hit me up. Join the Discord or hit me up on X or Instagram or Tout or something. Let me know. I'm happy to hear you out. And you know what else makes me happy? The fact that you're here. Appreciate you tuning in. Appreciate you tuning in. God, I'm like nasally. I'm tired. I'm gay. It's all crumbling, but we're here at the finish line. So that's all that matters. Appreciate you guys tuning in. As always, genuinely appreciate the support. Appreciate everybody watching, listening, tasting, all that stuff. And with that, that's about all Daddy has for you guys today. Y'all have a blessed day or evening or dusk even. If you're listening to this in the morning, go fuck yourself, I guess. I don't know. Hey! I'm hard.
Yeah. It's the hardest. Talk around and disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what heart is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can knock it. Let's get it started. It's the hardest. Talk around and disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what heart is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can knock it. Let's get it started.